Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to have Russ back. So Russ, welcome back, dude.
Thanks for having me again, Kendrick. It's been a while.
Yeah, for sure. Can you please remind everyone again what your full type is?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an ISTP in Myers-Briggs, but my full ops type is MFTISE, consume, sleep, blast, play last. And I just found out I'm a social type two.
All right, sweet. There's definitely a lot of questions I have for you about that because that's an interesting social type since we last spoke. A lot of stuff that you said in our first interview will not make me think that you're two, but we'll talk about that shortly. So what has your journey been like working on that SF playlist of yours since we last spoke years ago? What has the journey looked like? The challenges, and how well do you think you've done in terms of practicing that specific animal?
Um, so two things come to mind when you ask that question. And I think for a long time, I was very focused on just what FE was because when I first got typed, I didn't really understand FE. Obviously, it's at the bottom of my stack. And I focused on, what FE was doing for a while. Um, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but doing your last animal, in my opinion, is way harder than doing your last function. And so I've made a little progress on it, but I feel like just over the last year have I really internalized what play really is. Um, because I'm just not I'm not ever doing it. I'm so unconscious to what the play animal is doing. And it's getting around other people that have it. It's being around my children. I'm pretty sure at least two of my children have a savior play animal. And the constant questions, every kid has questions, but especially if they're high play, they want to process everything together. And that can be very overwhelming for a consume sleep um, mope like me. So I don't know how far I've gotten. I know that in the last 12 months, it's been on my radar, and it's little things like, oh, I can ask other people. I can reach out to the tribe, right? Because us IPs, and especially us playlast IPs, are our own worst enemy when it comes to loneliness. We we project a lot of our decider stuff on the tribe, and we assume that they don't want to help us, and we make them a lot scarier than they are instead of just reaching out and connecting. And it makes the tribe suspicious of it. It makes the tribe suspicious of us, which just causes a downward cycle, and it reinforces our fear that, see, the tribe doesn't like me, they're scary type thing. So working on the play has been really hard, but what I have seen is that the more I do the play, I actually calm down quite a bit because the tribe wants to play. The tribe wants to process together. And when you process together with the tribe, they're much less likely to reinforce the IP fears. And so we can talk about it later, but I had a pretty big play last tidal wave, over the last couple of years. But yeah, the play last has definitely been the hardest challenge for my type, because I'm a super introvert. It's the IP stacked, it's the TI up top, combined with the play last. So I'm literally the most introverted,
Yeah, you're the most I
except,
of the IP.
except for my social type, apparently.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a contradiction which we'll talk about in a bit. That's a really good one. I love that contradiction. When I heard that one, I was like, oh, there we go. There's something different or something strange here. Um,
Yeah.
I think what you said was on point in regards to the self-fulfilling prophecy of how you project what the tribe it really is, which is kind of ironic because you have the extrovert sensing, right? Which is gathering the facts. And the fact states that the tribe is actually friendlier than you think. If
Mhm.
you actually go there. But I guess it's last, so it has a challenge. Although when you did mention about the last animal being harder than your fourth function, for me it's a little bit different. The fourth function is definitely harder. The SI is harder than
Mm,
is the sleep last, but because mine's double masculine, my sleep last, so
mm,
that's
that
helped.
makes sense.
Yeah, it helps me a bit. So in your case, you said that you feel overwhelmed when the tribe wants to process with you, especially your kids and stuff. But and you don't know how far you've gone over the years. But if I were to make you make an intuitive guess on how much progress you've made in terms of, at the very least, building up that endurance to interact with your kids when they do want to process with you, do you feel like, since your kid, your oldest one is already 10, so you've been a dad for 10 years at least,
Yeah.
you feel like your endurance for that play, at the very least, has gone up when in regards to your family, kids and wife?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm divorced, by the way, now, but we can
Oh,
get into that later. But absolutely, it has. I think, 30% of the battle, and that's just an arbitrary number, but 30% of the battle is knowing that your play lasts and knowing what play is. And I think I do have a pretty good awareness at this point of the void that I leave. And so being aware of it has made me much more gracious on my kids, and much more willing to engage with their play energy when they have it. And anyone who's high play for that reason, because, as a TI, I'm kind of block banging everything. But if I know what something is and I can expect it, then it helps me to process, what the tribe is trying to do. So that's such a TI answer. But yeah, it's really helped to know. But my endurance has absolutely increased. I think it was beginning before I even knew ops. Just having kids forces you to do that. And I remember getting my typing results back from David Shan almost 5 years ago now, and that's one of the things that Shan said to me in my recording, was that one of your biggest challenges is going to be focusing on whatever you're doing for work or whatever you're sleep processing, and having a child run in and interrupt it and want to play process. And so there's a part of my brain now that when I do get interrupted, knows what's happening and has just calmed down a lot. I'm not as obligated to keep focusing on what I'm doing. And kids just inevitably force you to do that because they're so chaotic and they have to process so much with you. So, in my case, having children has really forced me to grow in a very positive way because it's just made me do the play.
gotcha. So since you brought it up already, you were married to an ENFP. Is that right? Your ex-wife was an ENFP?
ENTJ.
Oh, ENTJ, sorry. I thought she was an ENFP for some weird reason.
I I dated an ENFP after that.
Oh, okay. I see. I see. Gotcha. So your kids is with the ENTJ.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. And your divorce was a while ago, or is it recent?
It was, we were separated in 2020 and then we were divorced in early 2021.
Okay, so it's been a few years.
Yeah,
Um,
almost three.
and then your girlfriend after was a ENFP then?
Yes. Typed by David Shan. Um, and yeah, so I went through a couple relationships after my marriage. And ironically, well, my second relationship after my marriage got typed by Dave and Shan. The one after that was already typed by Dave and Shan. So I've had a really interesting couple of years analyzing types and how they interact with my own. So my ex-wife was double feminine, ENTJ, last, and my girlfriend after that was ENFP, last, um, audio. And the person I was with after that was double feminine, ENFJ, sleep last.
Gotcha. Do you find that you click better with the EJs in terms of dating? And then what was that like dating an ENFP? So that's that's like an interesting kind of segue there. Like our
Um, so, every type obviously has its strengths, and it's interesting, how I experienced each. Um, I'm with a person now and have been with somebody for almost a year that isn't objectively typed at this point. I think that she's probably a visual ISFJ, um, consume last, but we'll find out pretty soon, I think. But my experience was that the EJ, um, the EJs were very stressful for me. Um, and there is a lot of dancing that goes on between just the DI fighting with the DE. And yeah, so it I felt like with EJ's, like any type of struggles in the relationship came out quicker. With the ENFP, she was a double decider. And my personal opinion, for whatever it's worth, is that um, the deciders being with observers is a little bit easier. Um, the There is a little bit of a tough time learning to respect observer fears for a decider, but that's much easier, in my opinion, than getting triggered by the DE side of a personality type. So I either can work, but I feel like the EJ, um, when an IP is with an EJ, there's a lot more stress, right? I think in my own personal opinion, any relationship where the person's first function is in tension with the last function, their four functions removed, whether it's an animal or a function, is the most stressful part of a relationship. So if someone has TI up top and they're with someone that has TI at the bottom, it can work, but it's going to take a lot of work to communicate and respect, the bottom function, and both people have to be doing that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but the main thing that I've noticed is that I'm able to remain a lot calmer with double deciders. And there's just something about being able to calm one another down because they're not falling off the same cliff as I am with people fears all the time. Um, and if you're with a relatively conscious person, they will respect your fears and kind of help you through them, even
right.
though they, yeah, even though
Right.
they
No,
don't feel
that's a really good point. If a decider and observer starts dating, because when one person is freaking out over their, let's say, decider fears, then the double decider can guide them through the process and say, hey, you know what, it's not that bad. Let's talk about it. And then vice versa with like the single decider having their observer problems, and you're like, yeah, this is not a big deal. Like you can walk them through the double observing and no
yeah,
problem. And then eventually you become each other's saviors. Like rescuers essentially.
right, right. And if I could say this too, Kendrick, um, what I've learned through, a lot of, it was a lot of rebounding after my 10-year marriage. And we can get into this later if you'd like to too. But last time we talked, I was a practicing Christian. I'm no longer a Christian, so I've processed out of my former religion, and also processed out of relationships. And so there's just been a lot of emotional stress. So there was some rebounding going on in the multiple relationships, but it has been interesting. Just I feel like I've gotten a little bit of a unique insight on ops because I've been in relationships with multiple people that are actually objectively typed. So I've gotten to really feel and experience what each of the functions are doing and what they actually feel like. It's one thing to watch them or see them. It's another thing to try to build a relationship with them and see how the functions then collide. So lots of obviously I have regrets, but there's been a lot of positive. And this is what I was going to say is, some people say type doesn't matter in a relationship, and some people say type is everything in a relationship. And I don't agree with either of those. I think that there's an in between where our nervous systems are tied to our functions. That's the biggest thing I've realized in these relationships. I can be as conscious as I want, but at the end of the day, my nervous system is always going to react to decider fears more than observer fears because it's just how I'm cognitively wired. And the same is true of everybody. So I think any relationship, one of the most important things is considering, I'm not a slave of my functions. I can grow, but they do dictate how I respond. And so it's wise to find somebody that in some parts of your type is able to calm you down, because some types just rev each other up and it gets worse and worse. And you're just talking different languages. That's really all it is. I'm great friends with people who have the FI function, and I love and appreciate FI. But I've realized for me, it doesn't work in an intimate relationship, because what ends up happening is that my demon FE comes out and wants to connect. And then when the TE just wants to work with me, I get really agitated. Like, because I want to process the feelings and the emotions collectively, like every FE does, which is confusing for someone who's on the FITE spectrum, because I'm this like cold, hard ISTP, but I've got this inner child that's a little SEFE play. And if I don't have somebody that has the functions to really accommodate that, it just tends to deteriorate over time, So, and every type's a little bit different, but those are the biggest insights from my journey so far.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I do think like your decider animals, I think for long-term relationship, I think it's just, I'm not saying it's impossible for TIFE and FITE to not be together. And obviously in the community, there's many pairings of that, and it work and it's been okay. But I think in general, like having those two together the same does help, because you don't have to do the runaround of like trying to translate to each other's language, because you're speaking, like for example, like I have FI, right? And then an FE person's talking to me, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, keep your emotion to yourself, because I have FI, right? Like,
Right.
like that's so gross. You're telling me about all your like your baggages, but like at the same time, I realize I'm like, but then if it's for a close friend, then I'm okay with it. It doesn't
Right.
bother me. If it's just like a stranger trying to FE to me, I'm like, yo, go away. But if it's like a close, if it's a close friend, then it's fine. It's fine. I get what they're
Yeah.
doing, and I'm like, cool. I respect that, and I'm here to be a good friend, and I go FE and I'll listen.
Yeah. You know what I've seen a lot in the community is that the masculine TIs seem to get along okay with the feminine FIs. There's a lot of good, it seems like good connections between those two types in the community. I think masculine TI and masculine FI is a really hard one, because um, the the FI is obligated to like pure authenticity, and it ends up being offensive, especially when you're working through deeper issues. It ends up being offensive to the TI, because the TI will just say, well, you can't act that way, and us resolve this issue. So that one's really hard. Not that it can't work, but it requires a lot of translation and understanding of like what FI is doing and what TI is doing. But I've seen a lot of um, the masculine TEs and the masculine TIs getting along, it seems like, pretty well.
Really? That's a weird combination, masculine TE and TI, because like the masculine TE is super aggressive, right? Wouldn't that be like kind of off-putting for the masculine TI?
I'm sure it would, but it's interesting. Like I've observed my nervous system and how it responds to each of the different types. Like me and my partner watch a lot of like dating shows, and like Love Is Blind and Married at First Sight, and just to type the people, it's really fun, and to type them and see these people that call themselves experts put the worst pairings together. And it's fun to analyze that. But what I've noticed is I prefer the FEs as far as relationships are concerned. Speaking the same emotional language just really gives you a lot of a good foundation to work through harder things. But I resonate a lot when I see like masculine TEs. They don't feel very abrasive to me. They are direct, but I respect the TI directness or the TE directness because I'm direct with T too. So it's a little bit
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
different. But they're still feminine on the feelings, so they don't get aggressive on the feelings, and it feels easier to connect with. And then the masculine FIs, if I watch like a masculine FI on a dating show, I always get pissed off at how they handle the relationship.
So those ESFPs then, because those dating shows are full of ESFPs, right?
All ESFPs, oh my God.
They're all ESFPs in those like those reality TV shows. Um, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me because like the feminine FI does feel very FE like, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
even with the dudes, like if you watch like Ed Milet or Dave Bautista with their feminine FI, it's like, oh my God, it's crazy how like this big jack person has this like girly side inside them, right? You know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and all the motivational like speakers that are masculine TI, like I really connect with them and they motivate me. So I think there's less of an emotional rub there. But yeah, just my opinion.
Gotcha. All right. And then how did you process your divorce specifically? Because that must be the biggest hit of all the relationships because you know, like obviously you have kids together, right? And that changes
Yeah.
you know, you have a deeper history. And obviously you dated before you got married too, right? So you were together for quite some time, right? Compared to like the
Yeah.
other like rebound relationships, right? So how did you process the relationship when you were in it? You know, like the early stages, you know, when you had kids and then when it came to the divorce, essentially.
Yeah. So we actually got married pretty quickly. Um, it was mainly religion driven because in the Christian religion you don't have sex till you get married. Can I say that on this?
You can say whatever you want, man.
Um, so I'm sure most people are familiar with that ethic of Christians a lot of times. And so, being a 23-year-old virgin, there is a rush to like jump into marriage and, get going, So unfortunately, because of that culture and what it promotes, I think that's pretty common for people to jump into relationships that are incompatible and then wonder what they did, years later. And my ex is not a bad person at all. She's a great mom. She's good, like really good to my kids. But we just we were my nervous system was a mess. And so just to make a long story short, when I talked to you in our last conversation a few years ago about getting in therapy and how that helped me do my FE, and was very healing because I started doing my last function and realizing how important it was, but also having just kind of a controlled setting where you're forced to do the FE was very growth inducing for me. And so I kind of woke up to the fact that like the vibe was not good in our relationship. And again, I don't place any blame. It was just incompatibility. And the more I learned about our types, it actually really helped me because I understood that what Savior TE was doing and what Savior TI was doing was so different. And we were constantly clashing. Um, she constantly wanted to work with me, and I would hurt her feelings a lot because I would just like masculine TI be like, go work on it yourself. Like, why are you wanting to work on this? And that's hurtful to a feminine TE who wants to connect, on working on things. So it was just death by a thousand cuts, I think, in both directions. I think we just deteriorated over time because we were speaking different languages and it was just more than the nervous system could handle. But I was raised in a religion and a very fundamentalist version of Christianity that you don't get divorced. And so I pretty much got into that relationship, suppressed myself, and did that for years. And when I went to therapy and it all started pouring out, um, everything unraveled pretty quickly. So when I recently did the video for Dave and Shan on my social type, I re-answered all the typing questions, and one of them was, what was the hardest time in your life? And I basically said, from the beginning of the divorce to the beginning of 2023, last year was the hardest time of my life. Like, because I not only had the existential crisis of unraveling my religion, but I was processing the end of a relationship, and there was a lot of tribe drama too, which is my greatest fear. So it was a really watershed moment. I don't, because of the divorce, I don't have a relationship with my parents. Um, and that's been very difficult and really forced me to process the tribe fears, take responsibility for how I create them by how I approach situations. And I'm convinced a lot of it comes from my play last introversion, because I kind of stay in a shell, and it makes people more suspicious of you, especially when there's religious baggage involved. And you just can't maintain a healthy connection. My brother, I'm almost certain, is a ESTP, double decider, and he doesn't agree with my parents on a lot of things, but it's interesting to watch him maintain a relationship with them despite that, because he just doesn't really care. He doesn't get involved in all the ins and outs of decider stuff. But this might be helpful to know. I was completely wrong on my parents' type. I wasn't very good at typing 3.5 years ago when we had our when we did our last interview. But Dave and Shan actually gave me their opinion on my parents' types, and that's been very insightful too. My dad, they think is ISTP, Savior Play,
Oh, wow.
ISTP, and my mom is ESFJ, double masculine. Um, so basically, I grew up around deciders. Like I don't know anything but decider drama, and so like my ex is a decider. Both my parents are deciders, and so it just was an explosion when I left Christianity. And I really, like, one thing I processed with Dave around that time was like getting into my FI, right? Like letting myself be angry and authentic, and finding my authentic truth. And I wanted to say this to you, Kendrick, too. um, I don't know if you remember this, and I don't even know if it was intentional, but you made a point 3 years ago on our interview that really stuck with me. And it was basically, you were surprised I was a Christian with my type. And you said something about how my family influenced my feminine FE from a religious standpoint. And I've processed that. That's like the top of my list of things I've been processing the last 3 years, is self-awareness around how the tribe influences me. We're like, ISTPs are so dialed in on like our logic, and especially when it's masculine, we just get completely moved. Like the tribe's emotions are like a tidal wave, like their values are like a tidal wave. And it really influences us more than we're conscious of. And so when I kind of ripped my Christian faith apart and realized that my values weren't aligned with Christianity at all, it was very difficult, because I kind of did this push pull of like, okay, I'm trying to do this FI thing. I'm trying to be masculine FI and authentic with my values, but I can't sustain it, obviously. And so I think it was probably disorienting for my family, because I was coming out really punchy, masculine, ST at the top, consume, and made some YouTube videos about my journey. And yeah, it was just kind of a big emotional mess for me because I experienced a lot of rejection and really my worst fear. But I think it's interesting how when we start becoming conscious of our type and really digging into it, it feels, and maybe you've experienced this too, it feels like the universe starts to force us down that road a little bit. Like the awareness is the first step, but then we start to experience real life things that may make us face our demons. And like that experience of divorce was an appointment with my soul, which to me is an appointment with play and FE. Um, and there's been two aspects to it. One has been taking responsibility, which I do as a masculine TI. I push really hard on myself and really trying to own the voids that I leave. And I realize this about masculine TI, and I see it on the dating shows every time. It's so easy for me to spot a TI because they are so dismissive of the vibe that they're fucking up. Like they don't take it seriously, they don't care. And I've done that lots of times. And I definitely did it, in the divorce process. Like my low play and my low FE really made it more difficult on the tribe, I think, to keep up with my process. Right. And so I was just kind of swinging back and forth between my savior and my demon of on one hand, like pushing on myself, trying to take responsibility and grow, but then also giving myself permission to put some blame on the tribe where it was deserved and stand in my FI and kind of, middle fingers up, just be like, I don't have to do what you value. I don't have to do it. I can do what I value. And so that's kind of been a really difficult journey and probably the hardest part because I always default back to my feminine FE, which is so movable. And I'll stand up and try to do FI for 5 minutes and then I'm moved by the tribe again. So it's been a really painful journey of um, having to work with a huge tribe tidal wave, lots of tribe hate, fucking things up on my end in the process because of my own healing, and then trying to navigate it all. But I do feel like I'm on the other side of it. I feel like my kids are in a good spot. They've kind of adjusted. Um, and I feel like over the last 6 months, especially, I've gotten into a much better spot as well. So sorry, that was a really long answer.
It's all good, man. It's all good. This is your interview, so say whatever you want. Um, yeah, it's interesting about the stuff that you mentioned, especially about your family, that you're no longer in communication with them after you left the Christian religion. I think it's kind of interesting being in the Decider family because I am in a similar boat as you when it comes to religion. Like I grew up Christian also, and like I went through like the whole gambit of like Christianity and whatnot, like Sunday school, Bible studies, and all that stuff. And I think when I was like in my mid 20s, that's when or like early 20s, I was like, this whole thing's BS. And no offense to the Christians, of course, but and that's kind of like I didn't tell anyone that I left until like I was in my 30s, like early 30s. That's when like I started telling like my relatives and stuff. Like I told my cousin, I'm like, I don't believe in this. Like I remember I went to church once, and then the priest was saying, I can't like I was in Philippines visiting family. And then I went to church just out of respect to my family. I'm not like religious. I already told them I wasn't Christian, but I'll go out of respect, you know.
Right.
And then I remember the priest was saying like, if you're gay, you're going to hell, blah blah blah. And then like when we came back to my cousin's house, I told her, I'm like, that priest is fucked up. It's like I said to her, right? Like, how can you say that like gay people are going to hell? Like, what is this bullshit, And then
Yeah.
she looked at me and she's like, how would you feel if your son was gay? I was like, I wouldn't care. I don't give a shit.
Right.
I'll tell my if I had a gay son, I'll tell him, hey, I still want grandkids. I don't care how you do it. I don't give a shit how you do it, but that's what I want. But I don't care if you're gay or not. It doesn't really matter to me. So
Right.
and so but then I have a double-sided family. So they're trying to like bring me back into the religion, you know? So it's like, it's not like kind of,
Oh,
it's not like it's not like yours. It's like yours is like, oh, you're not part of the club, then you're out or something, right? But for me, it's like double decider. It's like, oh, you don't believe in this. Maybe we could convince you with double deciding that
right.
you can come back in. And I do notice
Yep.
that with like that the difference when you were telling your story, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, what the heck? You're so extreme because mine's just like I think I have like a lot of family member that's like also a two. So they're doing like the scam, which we'll talk about shortly, right? Like the salesy influencing and stuff. So they're trying to like convince me, it's like, hey, they're trying to like stick in Christianity in our conversation every time. And I'm just like rolling,
Oh God.
I'm just rolling my eyes. I'm telling them like I don't believe in this, like so like for me it's like I love seeing family, but in small doses because then otherwise it gets too much. But
Right.
I do want to hear about what happened with the Christianity stuff because like did you get disowned? Did you cut them out? Like what happened? Like what was the context of the non-communication?
Um, well, my ex is still a Christian, and she was afraid when we got a divorce that my parents would be upset with her. And I told her, I will tell them that it's my decision so that they know um, that you're not the one initiating this. Um, and so, it's interesting because I really sometimes, I push too hard on myself and I'm like, if you were a double observer, or a double decider, you would be in a relationship with them. But I don't necessarily know if that's true because they have been pretty emotionally abusive to me and texted me telling me I'm going to hell. Um, and just they're aggressive about their approach to it. So if I were to try to be in relationship with them for me as a single decider, it's just too activating. I
Right.
think maybe at some point I'll have capacity for it as long as they're not abusive, as long as they don't throw it in my face and can accept me for where I am. And so I don't think at this point for me it's necessarily a lack of double deciding. It's more just a decision that it's not healthy for me to be a part of that. And I've just kind of set up some boundaries with them too of like I want a relationship with you, but like you have to be respectful, and they just haven't positively responded. So I'm like, okay, well, you're telling me how you're going to treat me by your reaction right there. So it's just not worth it. And my my double observer or my double decider girlfriend is like, look, from my opinion, I don't get triggered by what you tell me about them, but um, if I were in your shoes, I would cut them off too. And so that's affirming to me because I have a lot of anxiety around, doing the right TI thing and wondering if I'm doing the right thing. I would love a relationship with my parents, but I tried for a long time, even after the divorce, and it just goes nowhere.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think you do need to have a distance for several years, and let them process their own stuff before you guys can come together again. And and it'll be like small interactions at first, and then
Yeah,
eventually you'll come to like a happy medium where like everyone's like,
right.
okay, it's not toxic.
Yeah,
So I do think you're doing the right thing. Although when you told me your story, it's kind of I have the same reaction as your double-decided girlfriend. I was like, this is not triggering. If my parents told me I'm gonna go to hell, I would probably laugh. Like I
yeah,
wouldn't be triggered at all. But I get it from a single decider standpoint. Like studying you guys, I can see like the tribe fears are real for sure. So I can empathize because like if I just look at your FE problem and I translate to my SI and how triggering my SI is to me, then I can feel what you're feeling. It's like, oh my God, if that's how I feel when I'm dealing with this SIBS, then it must be equally, if not worse, of a feeling when you're dealing with the FE stuff. Then I can empathize from that perspective because I think that's a good thing about OPS is like all our fourth function triggers us. So we can empathize with each other when someone's going through,
right.
like that.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because like I'm thinking about your type, and like the masculine FI is like, fuck you, you can think I'm going to hell, whatever. Like, like my feminine FE is like moved by it. And I'm at the mercy of that movement. And
Right.
then I have to go process, every time. I'm sure like you do, when you're forced to do paperwork or something, like, and you've got to calm down, or, whatever SI troubles you're having.
Yeah, I think I'm more triggered by the SITI paperwork than the SITE.
Mm.
It's like the SITI paperwork, it only works for that person that made that paperwork, you know? But like
Uh,
the SITE one works for everyone, so it's okay, you know? Um,
yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, I'm jealous of masculine FI sometimes because I really respect it. Um, its ability to hold its own values and stick with them no matter what's happening around it. It's really impressive to somebody who's come to terms with what my feminine FE is doing. The masculine FI can really hold its ground and be consistent with its values no matter what is happening around it. And it's something that I'm jealous of. In my situation of like leaving my religion, there are some days I'm like, man, I wish I was masculine FI, like, and could just not care.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure with the masculine FI. It feels like if I don't like you anymore, I don't care about like even as a tribe above self person, like the moment my FI puts you in the shit box, because I categorize people, right? Like it's not like black and white. It's like there's like a because I'm a double decider, so there's like a spectrum from like I really like this person to like if something bad were to happen to you, I would probably eat a popcorn and be happy. Like that's there's like an extreme spectrum like that, right? So yeah, it's and then like people kind of like move back and forth between the spectrum depending on their behavior. And then like I secretly like change your category. Like for example, like for example today, like oh me and Russ were good friends. I'll put you in this good friends category. And then like if you have months of like shitty behavior, being a shitty friend or whatever, then I'll slowly slide you and you probably won't hear from me, right? But it's double deciding still. So if you like realize, oh, I did this fucked up thing, it's like, oh, okay, then I slide you back. So it's with the FI, it's like,
I
yeah,
Well, I've had a lot of close friends that I've typed as ESFPs
yeah,
because we did like sports together and stuff.
yeah, that
And
makes
I think they always appreciated my feminine FE because I would never fight them. Like I did never get in their shit box because when the vibe got bad, I would just kind of move and get out of the way and back off. So I've had a lot of friends that are masculine FI that we really you connect pretty well.
it's okay. So there's the biggest difference between FE and FI is the conflict thing, because FE doesn't like conflict, right? But like FI is a little bit different. We're okay with conflict. It's conflict avoidant is something that FI people do not respect. Um, it's if you have a friend or a relationship and you guys have a conflict, if you guys come together and you resolve that emotional issue between both of you, or it could be logical also, but whatever the issue is between you and that other person, the friendship actually rebounds and becomes stronger. Like the bond actually becomes stronger. So
Right.
it's kind of like with TI when you respect people who are direct with you, with telling you the truth, right? Like you respect people who do that to you, right? So
Yes.
and then the bond essentially becomes better, even though the TI or the TE masculine, whatever it is that's said to you, might be hurtful in the front end. It ultimately you respect it and you have a respect for that person that just told you the truth,
Right.
right? That's why you butt heads with the feminine TE because they're doing the liar TE stuff. They won't tell you the truth, right? They're keeping it in, right? So it's the same thing with the FI. It's like, that maybe that's why FI and masculine FE could maybe get along a little bit better in that sense, where like at least
Yeah.
you're telling me, you know, where my behavior's off and I can like punch you back, right? And then we're okay with like punching each other back
Yeah.
with the F, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's really true. And I think that's the area I've struggled in my FI relationships and where they started getting imbalanced is the masculine FI would come out with its authentic truth, and I would respond with um, not FI, right? Like I would put on my TI gloves to fight, and FI doesn't respect that. FI wants to know, like, if I'm fucking pissed at you, they want to see me feel it out, and it makes them feel like we're on the same page,
There you
right?
go. You got it. You got it, dude. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We want to hear your emotions, not your TI. Like use your FE, right? And then be like, I'm pissed at this, fuck this person, like just share actually what you're feeling. And then we can connect,
yeah,
right? Even though it's FI, because FI is, my emotions personal. But if we're friends, then you are inside my FI, so we can communicate,
right.
and it's okay. You can FE, I can FI, it's fine. It's fine, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting. I think one thing that I've really internalized the last couple of years about ops is that, like, we we all use language as a way to connect with other people, but we use words differently. Like different functions use different words differently. Like we mean something different when we say honesty. Like FI honesty is way different than TI honesty, and they're much different. But it is really interesting how um, one thing I've noticed is that to to F to someone who has FE, no matter where it is on the stack, if you get around one another too much in certain situations, like the FI will always feel selfish. And I know just from watching interactions that TEs experience TI the same way. Like, how dare you work on that alone? Like, we should be working together. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, between the two that's unintentional. But that's a word I've been really interested in, is like how we perceive different functions, like selfish.
Yeah, okay. So that bothers me about the TI because I have a lot of INTP friends, right? And what I noticed is like I remember one of my friends, he was getting married, he was an ISTP, and then we're trying to get our INTP friend to come to his bachelor party, right? And then the INTP friend's like, oh, it doesn't work for me, the scheduling and stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work? This is your fucking friend. Just show up. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you stupid? Who gives a shit about your fucking schedule? Who cares if you're tired? This is your friend's only getting married once, So it's like he's being like a douchebag, right? And then I use every trick in my book to get him to come, right? Because like obviously we need to get everyone together. And the fucked up thing is when he gets there, this is how stupid TI is. So no offense, Russ. This is how stupid TI is. Okay, like he finally shows up to the party and he has more fun than everyone else. Okay, he has more fun than everyone else. And this moron who doesn't know how he emotionally works, um, is like, are you stupid? Like you gained the most value from this party than anyone else.
Yes.
Just because you weren't in touch with your FE, like you didn't know that give being put in this kind of situation makes you so happy, makes you so happy. And he's always trying to avoid people and stuff. But then the thing is, when he's around people, he's so happy. And I'm like, what is wrong with the TIFE people?
I
Like
know.
you don't know, like you don't even know what makes you happy. It's so fucked
No,
up.
we don't.
I'm like, you're so smart, but also so dumb at the same time. I'm like, what? It's like, no
It's
offense,
ridiculous.
no offense.
It's
Yeah, but it's like
ridiculous.
the biggest, most ridiculous thing. I'm like, so you figured everything else out except for your own happiness. Are you kidding me? Uh,
Right. That has to be super frustrating.
yeah. But like like I think what I realized about the FE people is like I just have to tell you like the FE at the bottom people because I have a lot of like ISTP and INTP friends. I'm like, dude, I just go up to them. I'm like, dude, this makes you so happy. What are you doing? Who cares about your schedule? Happiness, and then if you can convince like you guys to like switch your thinking from the TI to FE, you know, like I think you'll be like, oh right, that's a different lens I'm looking at, How do you
Right.
how do you feel about that if like someone convinced you to like switch your like thinking from the TI to the FE, you know?
Well, because I'm aware of what that is and what it looks like I can like hack it with my TI and be like, yeah, they're right. Like, like they're right. I need to do that. Like that's been a big challenge as a TI later in life is to realize like I watch all my FI friends like going down the path of like what they love and being super aware of it. And I'm very jealous of that. So if if you and I were hanging out a lot and you were telling me like, dude, you need to focus on and figure out what you value, I would perceive that as very helpful.
Yeah, so I had this ISTP friend, and he keeps fucking people over because he's, obviously the lead TI, right? And then so me and my group of friends, we cut him off, which because and I did it on purpose because I knew tribe hate was the biggest problem of ISTP. I know this sounds horrible. I'm obviously totally abusing the OPS system. Um, and then so I'm like, you know what? I know what this. So you think you're so clever, huh? I'm gonna use what you are scared the most, tribe hate. So I got all my double decider friends, and we unanimously uh, blocked him. And the only way he can come back is if he gave us an apology letter or made an apology video. So good.
Oh
and
my
uh,
God.
and then he did because he was trying to bargain with us using his TI, right? I'm like, no, one more strike and you're out. You don't even get this chance anymore. And then he freaked out and he made an apology video. He made it a rap video, which is kind of funny. And then
I think I've
obviously,
heard this story before.
yeah, I did.
Have
I
you
told
told
him
this
before.
before?
I did, yeah. But like the point I'm trying to make is when we did get back together again and I got a chance to talk to my friend because I want him to know what he's actually doing because like obviously we're friends so I don't want him to like you know assume we had a fight over like this one minuscule thing. It's actually like a behavior over a span of many years, cumulatively that caused him that this is why it happened to him. If you just did this one fucked up thing, no one would people just let it slide probably, right? So I
Yeah.
told them like, dude, because the good thing about having FI friends is like once you're inside their FI, they know what your FI is, even if you don't know what it is. So I know
Right.
what my friend's FI is. I'm like, dude, I've known you since we were 13 years old. And as far as I've known you, there's only two things that makes you happy. That's what I said to him, right? Okay, number one is you chasing girls. Okay. And number two, that's playing video games with your friends. Those are the only two things that makes you happy. You're doing all this shit by yourself right now. You're going to do paintball by yourself or eating ice cream by yourself. And you know how empty you felt when you did all that. There's only two times you're happy. Going after girls, playing video games with your friends. And you're now married, so you can't go after girls. And now you alienate your friends, and now you can't play video games with your friends. You have nothing that brings you joy now. And then he's like, it's like he's like overload. He's like short circuiting. I could tell. He hasn't acted fucked up since then. I think he processed with his TI. He's like, oh, it's like, oh, I think he's like, oh, Kendrick is right. Like it is those
Yeah.
things. And he even told his wife if they can do like an open relationship thing because like I think he realized like the TI truth about him, right? About like what makes him happy, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like I think you need to have like an FI friend with a masculine FI to like be like, hey, you've known me for many years. What do you think brings me the most joy? You know, and then
Yeah.
and especially if they have SI, like an ENFP or it could be an ISTJ too or whatever, right? They can probably put it into like clear words. It's like, oh, it's this and this, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I just need to do more of this and this.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting you say that because one thing I processed about like the ENFP relationship I was in is that it makes sense that I was attracted to that immediately after my marriage when the tribe was coming after me because I had a FI like shouting at the tribe for me and immovable on the values um and it makes sense that that was the support I was drawn to at that time because I don't have that function. I can't stay mad. I can't stay mad at people consistently. Like I can't put people in a shit box like you do.
Right.
I try, and there comes a point where I can TI arrive at the point where it's like, okay, this is unhealthy. This is the wrong relationship for me to be in, and I can cut it off. But I can't put people in a shit box the same way an FI can. And so to have my feminine FE moved by that, it really makes sense that that was kind of my initial rebound, especially in my circumstances. Does that make sense?
It does, but I also saw a lot of ISTPs dating ENFPs. It seems to be a common thing in the community. There's like a lot of like marriage between this pairing. So I'm like, it must work if it's like if it happens quite a bit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it works for some people for sure.
yeah, but
For
it could
sure.
I think maybe the social type affects that also. So let's talk about social type since we haven't touched it at all.
Good
Okay.
segue.
Yeah. So your play last, but save your friends. What the hell? Like, we had this talk long time ago. I remember you said you didn't have very many friends. Um, but then your savior friends. So now that you know your savior friends, are you making an effort to make friends, like real friendships now that you want to maintain, since that it is actually important being a number two? Or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that and this is a consequence of realizing what play last is. Um, I had, I've had the realization that friends are critical to flexing the play muscle. And more interaction on an ongoing basis is important to getting out of my shell. And I think what I said in our last interview is I just tended to have fewer very close friends that were more intentional as opposed to having lots of friends, which would make sense with my play last. Like, I want to get friends that I can sleep process with, like not do all the play. So having tons of friends doesn't really make sense. But like there were a lot of unanswered questions for me around like when I was younger and I would have friends over for a weekend to spend the night, my cup was very filled. Like all through my childhood years. And I always wondered about that. And the social type really helped me make sense of it.
Oh,
That my
sorry. So you mean you felt happy when you said your cup is filled?
Yeah, I felt happy and I would feel depressed when my friends left and went home on Sunday. Like at the end of the weekend, I would feel really down and depressed. And I never knew what that was, but the social type really helped me to make sense of like my cup is very filled by being around the tribe. And I had a motocross business that I told you about in our last interview, and before I got my type back from David Chan, I thought play was in the top three because I used to love when like hundreds of people were on my property riding dirt bikes and everybody was effy having fun and I was connecting with everybody and doing the friend thing. And so when I got my type back and I was like play last, 5 years ago, and I was like play last, like super introverted mope, I'm like, how do I make sense of how I connect with other people socially? And I didn't have an answer. But when the social types came out, um, I thought I was a two. And I told Dave and Shan, I was like, guys, I think I'm a two. I know y'all are gonna think I'm a one, but like I think I'm a two. And they watched my new video and they agreed.
Yeah, I think that's cool that most people are aware of their social type. Like you just kind of like no, like they thought I was a four, but then I felt like, oh, that's a little bit off. I think I'm a two also. Like I felt like I was a two. So I remember I was working in an election and I had to manage like 50, it was 15 people. It was my first time doing a supervisory kind of role.
Yeah.
Because I have blast savior, right? So it activates the specialist coin. So I've been doing a lot of specialist stuff in my life, which has been completely wrong. Because I remember when I worked in an election, I had to manage a staff of 15, and we had to deal with the public for the election period in Canada. Um, I was like, oh my God, this is the first time in my life I felt in my element. I was like, managing people is like the easiest thing ever. I know it sounds crazy. I'm like, what? Managing people is easy? I'm like, but for me, as like a number two with double activated play in PE, I just felt it was like the easiest thing ever. And like public speaking is like a real strength of mine. Like I'm really good at public speaking. I even won like first place in like an improv contest before. Like so
Wow.
um yeah. so so at the start, like I've never been a manager before, and at the start of this election thing, I don't know anybody. I started doing public speaking. Like I just went on top in front of everyone, like, all right, everyone, listen up. This is what we're gonna do today. All right. We're gonna have a great time, blah blah blah. I'm doing like a little speech to like pump people up and stuff, right? We're gonna serve the public. We're gonna have a great day, and then and I looked to my right. I knew about OPS already by at this point, and I looked to my left. I saw all the deciders with their jaw open, and I was like, oh, they're surprised that I can talk to people without fear, and
Right.
but they don't know that my biggest fear is that paper on the table, the paperwork that we have to do a day to day.
Right. Yeah,
But anyways,
exactly.
so it's cool that you knew right away that you were two, because I think it's kind of like it's kind of obvious. Um so I guess that's where your entrepreneurial aspirations also came. Like you had your motocross business, right?
Yeah, and that's the type of business I'm drawn to. I would love I'm a financial advisor, so I am connecting with people on Zoom like every day.
Okay.
Um, and I enjoy that. Like I enjoy the personal interactions quite a bit. But like my my dream in business is to do more of like the motocross thing again, where it's like lots of people coming together having fun. And, that would, I think that would be my happy place long term to like, have some sort of business or piece of property or something like sport related where people could come enjoy themselves.
Did you watch that video that Shan made about careers? The live one? Have you seen that one?
I saw parts of it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Okay, so that was really good. I got a chance to watch the whole thing yesterday. Like, except for I didn't watch the friend part. Like when everyone's doing the friend stuff. Like I know I'm saving your friends, but like when people are doing that, it's kind of like still too much. No offense. No offense. No offense.
Fuck the FE.
What's that? Yeah,
Fuck the FE.
yeah. I don't like you. Let's connect. Share. Oh my gosh, shut up. No offense. No, but anyways, when I was watching that video, um, I was thinking to myself, Shan said something that really was really good because they're talking about like, should you like have a career that you're doing using your demons, or should you have a career using your saviors? Like,
Oh, interesting.
where's like the magic area here? And it feels like it's like a combination of a bunch of stuff. Like, so for like FI people, like we have to like what we're doing, but then for TI people, you guys have to, I guess, be challenged by what you're doing, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so ultimately you should go in a field where ultimately you are, what's the word I'm looking for here? You are engaged. You're engaged.
Mm.
Okay. Just because it's the right fit. It's the right fit. The right fit is
Yeah.
a little bit tricky. You have to do your trial and error is pretty much the answer for that. Like so for you, you kind of figured it out with like the sports arena, right? Like that. Oh, that works.
Yeah.
That works for you both logically and emotionally, right? So that feeds both your coins.
Yeah.
So that seems to be like the magic thing is like it has to feed your T and your F at the same time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I agree with that. I think this is something I've processed a lot with the functions is, Jung's idea of the archetype. And that has a lot to do with our vocation, like how our functions apply to what we should be doing and adding value to the world. And my stupid theory on it is that you add the most value to the world when you do all four of your functions.
Right, right.
So, like when we're younger, we tend to be drawn toward careers that are our saviors, but we don't grow at all and we're not adding as much value. And it tends to pay off for us less and cause more tidal waves. But one of the things I started figuring out a couple of years ago, and I'll give you a SC example, is I was working for a company, um, my last company that I worked for, as same job, financial advisor. I'm in the sales side of investments. So I basically help people plan for their retirement, help them structure their portfolio to provide income for them for the rest of their life, and just how to invest to do that. And I remember getting into my last job 8 years ago, and I got stock options, and the company was like a startup. And I had this like chaotic SE idea that I would just work there for a couple of years, make all this money, and then go do whatever I SE wanted. Like, and it was interesting because probably 4 years into the job, I I started awakening to the satisfaction of redundancy. And as a gatherer, that's very strange. But I started realizing I'm actually more successful when I'm willing to break out of my savior and do my third function and do the same thing over and over and over and over. And that's what my job was. So I don't know that I discovered it as much as life forced me to do it just to have the job. But I really started feeling a lot more fulfilled. Um, and I started feeling a lot more balance in my life between working hard, having some redundancy, and realizing that it actually allowed me to be more chaotic in my free time if I wanted to be. And my income went up too. So, that allows you to have more freedom as well. So like that's a double observer thing, right? Like realizing that, hey, if I am not afraid to be controlled, and if I just narrow down and focus, then I can go do my SC. And I've really discovered that in my career. And obviously, what I'm digging into now is like, what does that look like with that bottom coin, that FE? And how can I add value to the world by making people feel better and promoting a positive vibe? And what does that look like? And I think that's where my long-term dream comes in, is like, how can I make people happy? Um, so that's my stupid theory on careers, is it has to encompass all four. And the better you do your four functions, the more value you add to the world. Because I think like our life's purpose is found in our two demons. Like this the whole hero's journey logic is like, the more you get down into those, the more success you find. I know you found that in your career, I'm sure, of like doing, the more you do the SI, the more you narrow down and do the things you hate, the more success you have. I'd be curious if that's true for you.
Well, I make those explainer videos, right, in my channel, and they take me so long to make. I hate making them, but people love them, right? So it's like a love-hate kind of relationship where the more I have to, as I organize this explainer video, the 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 more sense of satisfaction I get, and also the people that is watching my channel also gets a sense of satisfaction. So it's like it's like, but I hate it. It's like I have so much anxiety, I can't sleep. But when it's done, the satisfaction cannot be removed. And it's like it's SI, so it's permanent too, right? It's like I can always look back and be like, I did this, like I
Yeah.
actually did this. Um, and like I think for me, like having my channel right now, like at first, like long time ago, I remember I did like a panel interview with Joyce, Benjamin, and Gray, and then I felt kind of misunderstood when I was talking to those guys because I was the only one in the NESI axis, and they kind of like weren't sure what I was saying. And then, but then when I got a chance to process that, I was like, no, this is a good thing because like there's no one in the NESI axis that's doing this. That's not many.
Right.
Most people are like are IJs or EJs, right? Um, so I'm like, okay, this is not a bad thing. It's like it's an opportunity. So there's definitely a sense of satisfaction for sure when I'm using the SI and also using the SF, right? So it's hard. It's super hard. It's like the hardest thing ever. But and you know what? The using your last animal, it never ends, man. Like learning how
Yeah.
how it works, it never ends. Like even recently, I thought I was already working on my SF sleep last, and even David Chan said I have 50% use of it. Like I'm still learning some new stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. I actually want to ask you about this since you're double activated sleep. So David Chan said this: when you are um when you are lead sleep or have, for in your case, double activated sleep, um you process things so that you don't make the same mistake again.
Yes.
Okay, how does that work? I'm so curious because I feel like I make the same mistake over and over again. Obviously some things have improved over as I got older,
Right.
but there's still like small stuff. Like there's some extreme stuff I heard, like every hour, like I think it was David said this, every hour must be perfected. Like this is the at this time of this day, the best version of me is when I do this, you know, and then like,
Right.
and then every single time of the day, there's like there's like some kind of activity that you would do where your best version would be there essentially, right? And then obviously
Yeah.
it's through trial and error to see which one is working, which one doesn't work, which one resonates with you, which one doesn't, which one makes you feel good, which one doesn't make you feel good. So,
Right.
what's your take on that? From you being double activated sleep, you know?
Yeah. So my sleep's obviously TI. And so one example I heard Dave give of this was when he sees something around the house that needs to be done, he's obligated to go do it right now. Like, and I really resonate with that, whether it's laundry or dishes or just something simple. Um, I, as a consumed sleep savior, I am not free to go do my info dominant thing like in work or in life until those problems are solved, because they're just problems to be solved. So the good side is shit is constantly getting done. Like even though I'm save your sleep, sometimes it feels like sleep last in a way, because it's just like constantly doing stuff. in an introverted way, but it just feels like the loop of consuming new information, putting it in the sleep box, processing it, moving on, and doing it with something else. And because and I've learned this from the social types, because I'm like demon specialized, I do it with everything, like every aspect of life, which in one way is chaotic because, I do that with tons of different things and I don't focus on one thing. But in another way, it makes life very efficient because there's no tabs open. And this comes up between me and my partner who's consumed last. Like the tension that we experience is she can leave tabs open for weeks, like unprocessed conversations. And I'm like, now, like we need to, because I'm double masculine consume. I'm like, we need to process this now. We need to resolve this. We need to move on. But I think that's the sleep too. It's like, I need to process this problem, especially from a decider standpoint. I need to process this conflict between us so we can figure out what the answer is, the
Right.
TINI pattern, and move on. Because if we can figure out the pattern and I can sleep process it, we won't ever have this issue again.
Right.
Right. And so it's like that's where that dance, it feels like, comes from of um, doing the sleep. I've realized being with a partner who's consumed last, like it's really helpful because my double masculine consume, I don't realize how much it's exhausting me all the time. Like, because I constantly feel this obligation to resolve everything and resolve it now. And I
Yeah.
think, again, that's the sleep too, because I don't, it's funny you say this phrase, but I say to everyone, I never make the same mistake twice. If I get corrected once, especially if the tribe corrects me, which feels uncomfortable, like I will sleep process the mistake I made to hell so I never make it again. So for me as a single decider, the motivation to sleep process is to not piss the tribe off ever again and not make the same mistake. And so I spend a lot of time doing the TINI, so the figuring out what the pattern is and processing like the right thing to do. And then, I mean, I do that all the time unconsciously.
It sounds a little bit easier with TI, like, because like the whole concept of mistake is a TI concept, right? Like right and wrong, kind of deal. Um, so, but the fact that Dave is also doing this is kind of interesting because he doesn't have TI, right? But then the fact that he said, oh, I'm not gonna make the same mistake again. I'm like, oh my God. Like, and like when I heard about that to the degree that you guys are processing things, I'm like, oh my God, like everything must be perfected so that the mistake doesn't happen again. Like, isn't that exhausting? So the first thing I was
It's
thinking,
ridiculous.
so the first thing I was thinking is that isn't that exhausting? Like, okay, I mean, it's not exhausting to make sure that you're tippy toeing all the time, that you don't, and you're keeping sleep, like constantly sleep processing, so that to make sure that before you think before you leap, essentially, because you've
Every
done this
time.
before. Yeah.
It is fucking exhausting. Like it is, I, I mean, it's unconscious because I do it in a savior state, but it is very, very exhausting. And I've actually, I'm sure that's why mindfulness has become a helpful practice for me because as I realize I'm doing that, I can actually turn that off a little bit and just be present. And that if I don't turn my mind off once a week in that fashion and do some mindfulness or meditation, I I will get overwhelmed and then I'll blame it on the tribe when something goes wrong. But it's usually me just in my loop. Um, yeah, which makes it harder to do the play, right? Because the play is the opposite of sleep. The play is it's um, it's relaxing that sleep muscle and then going to just process together and process with the tribe. And so the play is really, as much as my demons tell me it's not helpful, it is very helpful.
Okay, so dude, you have you should double activated sleep. Um, I think it was Uzair that said this long time ago, where like you guys are draining energy from putting on a facade. Do you feel like that is also happening to you? Like putting on like a persona, essentially?
Hmm. I don't know that I've experienced that. Maybe from the standpoint of like lack of FI and our decider fears. Um, I don't experience that.
Just like, with play last, apparently, and I spoke to a few play last people that said that confirmed the same thing where they said, because you're play last, so you're more controlled when you talk to the tribe. So you
Oh, I heard Uzair say this. Yes, I experienced that.
yeah.
Um,
And then controlling yourself when you're dealing with interacting with a tribe drains energy because then you have to put on a front, like some kind of persona, essentially.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now I understand what you're talking about. Yes, I definitely do that. And I think this is where the fear comes from the decider, because we like the deciders are afraid of judgment because we're the most judgmental. Like
Right.
we push so hard on ourselves and we judge everyone else so harshly, and it ends up biting us in the ass because then we get into social situations like that and we're pushing on ourselves. You have to be this thing or whatever that is. For us feminine FEs, like you have to find the vibe and kind of match it. And that's where I think that inauthenticity you're talking about comes from. It's like if I don't fit in perfectly, then I'm going to be rejected, and that's the most scary thing.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is in social interactions, you want people to be different from you because it's more fun when everyone is different. They have their own opinions, and like one thing that I do in Canada with my buddies is we'll get together and we'll play some um couch co-op 4-player multiplayer game, and then for like hours on end, we're just screaming at each other, saying the most offensive thing you could ever think of. Like, we'll say things that is like, you know, obviously extremely offensive in all ends, in all facets, and there's nothing being filtered. It's like true play, right? Nothing being filtered, nothing being censored. Um,
Yeah,
anything that you are thinking in your head that is fucked up is being said. And
especially any play.
yeah, yeah. My friend, because like my gang is like, I think it's me. I'm an ENFP. One of my friends is the ISTP guy. Another friend of mine, he is an ISTJ. He's a consume last, like sleep last play. And then the other one is I think I'm not sure if he's an ENTJ or ESTJ. He's one of them. Sleep last also. So there's like a good mix of like deciders. And you know what? Now that I think about it, we have all coins. We have the EP, IJ, IP,
Yeah,
and IJ. Now, no wonder it's so fun when I hang with those guys because we're all so different, right? Um, and uh,
yeah.
and dude, like the feeling of like being completely unfiltered with that pure play, it is the most like therapeutic feeling. Like it is like the rest of the week you're kind of good because the week you have that, like it's almost like FE. With FE you get all that pent up, all that emotion comes out, right? You have like
Right.
emotional outlet. But for me with my masculine I get that aggression out, right? So everyone's like happy, and then we go about our week again, and we're like, oh, we're good. Who cares what happens during the day because we've got all this like pent up stuff out of the way, just playing
Yeah.
games, chatting and stuff. So I do think the friend coin and also the high play, it's like it thinks it's like really awesome. Like I don't envy people who are low friends because they're missing out.
Yeah. Yeah. I would, that sounds really enjoyable to me. And one thing that comes to mind about it, I think is interesting. One thing I respect about the ENFPs is the NT play, because I think there's some camaraderie between NT sleep and NT play.
There is, yeah. Yeah,
Like
a big
the
time.
thing, like what you do on the outside, like we respect and appreciate because we do that shit on the inside, like the dark, like NT humor, like we're doing that on the
Yes.
inside all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no wonder I get along with like the ISTP so well because like I'm saying all this offensive stuff and then they get it and then it's like they won't say anything but they get it. But
Yeah, I think there's something to that, to having the same letters on the energy coin.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And then vice versa with the SF play and the SF sleep, right? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And then I think I was noticing when I interact with ISTPs, like especially with my ISTP friend. So we'll play like let's say we'll play a video game together. Because I have NT play, and NE is super quick, right? It's like fast, you know.
so fast.
It's so fast, right? So we're playing, and I can come up with a really brilliant strategy on the fly when we're playing something, right? Like for example, we were playing StarCraft 2 a long time ago, like 10 plus years ago. I don't know if you've heard of that game, but like, um, so we were my friend is we were losing, and then I came up with a strategy. I'm like, I know how we can beat them. I need to keep attacking the enemy so they don't have the time to think. I didn't know about TI back then. I didn't know that TI needs time to pause to think, but uh, I didn't know that back then. But now I know
I hate that. I hate that about my type.
having to pause to think.
I hate that I come up with the best arguments after the argument.
Yeah, exactly.
And the NEs are like on point.
Yeah, exactly. So like when we're playing this game, I'm like, I think this is the strategy here. This person, I think, is cerebral, but if I don't give him time to think, he can't win. And we won because I kept annoying this person that they don't have time to think, and then because they
Right.
don't have time to think. And the thing with NET is we can think while we're doing stuff at the same time. It's like a superpower in my opinion because I've noticed
Yeah.
I'm like people can't. So like I noticed in real time strategy, I can beat a lot of people, but in turn based strategy, the TIs beat me more than I beat them. Because when they have time to
Mm.
think, it's deadly, right? But we don't. They don't have time to think. They're helpless. You know.
We have to go sleep. If we don't have time to sleep process, we're worthless on the spot.
Exact. Not worthless. Because I think you can use your what do you call it? I think you can use your ST consume still to help you get ahead
Right.
because
Right. But it's still slower.
it's slower. Like it depends who you're against, I guess, because the SD consume I think is really good. It's also like flawed in my opinion, because like I'm watching my friend with like SD consume, and like I notice he won't make a decision unless he's gathered enough ST data to validate the decision. You know?
Is he blast last?
No, he's not. He's sleep last.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but he won't he won't make a decision unless he's gathered all the ST. Like
Mm.
but if he makes a decision, he'll be very reluctant, right? He'll be very tippy-toey, and he'll ask the tribe for like input first. He needs to get data, even from at least from the tribe, because he double activated play, right? My ISTP friend,
Well, yeah.
and like, and I'm like, dude, yeah, yeah, we don't have the data, but it's kind of obvious,
It's
you know.
obvious. Yeah.
It's kind of,
To
I don't,
to end at the top. Yeah, you see it.
no, but you have n third, so it's still there, right? And you're double observer. So you've never been in a situation where you're like, this, yeah, I don't have the ST data, but it's kind of obvious. Like
Yeah, of course, but that's happening in my head, and it's feminine, and so I don't trust it. Like,
oh,
yeah,
but my NT is double feminine, dude. I have double
yeah,
feminine NT play.
that's true.
So I think with practice, I think you can still use it because like for me, it's just like over the years of NT play, it's double feminine, but over the years, it's like, oh, my SI knows that it has worked in the past. So
Oh yeah, you're double masculine sleep last, so even though it's last, you are. Oh, interesting. I haven't processed that about your type yet. Um, yeah, that's why too. I'm sure you're very aware, like when you see your friends not being in alignment with specifically what they value, because your SI and your FI is very particular about
um,
preference.
oh, you mean the happiness thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, dude. Like if I get to know someone and they're in my FI, then I'm interested in your FI too. Even though you don't have FI, everyone has FI, everyone has TI, right? Even if you don't have
yeah,
it, you can't use it, so someone has to tell you, right? Um,
right.
so like for example, I don't have TI, but someone can tell me what I'm competent right? And I'm like, oh really? I'm good at that. I'm like, okay, I can take that advice, right? So,
Yeah,
um, so for example, like all my friends, I know what their FI is. Like I know what makes you happy, even if you don't know what makes you happy. Like all my FE friends, who's like kind of I know. You know what? It's kind of weird though. The double decider FI or FETI knows what makes them happy. I don't know
yeah,
what, I don't know how. Maybe it's like the combination of the FE and TI together. It's like, oh, um, it's like the truth is I was happy in these situations, you know. So I'll just
yeah.
do more of these situations that gave me more FE. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if they're play, they're getting more feedback from other people too in more situations. I think my type is especially fucked when it comes to that because we're not getting the ping back. The single decider up top, the play last, like if we have FE, and it was balanced, we would at least be getting feedback from other people on what we're like, you know, how we contribute to the tribe. But like for me, I'm just not listening to that.
Okay, dude. So you said something to me interesting earlier during this interview. You said that on our first interview, you mentioned to me that you're very deliberate with your friends in which case whoever will help you uh, NITI process things better, right? Or having a deeper conversation, essentially, right? Or interaction. How come you don't
Partly,
have any friends dedicated just to be an idiot, like an SF polite idiot, like an outlet just to be a pure, like just to be like a dude, one day you're just gonna be a complete moron with a bunch of guys, get it all the FE out, say all the offensive things, and like, how come you never structured that in your, sleep like structure essentially?
I mean, that's a really good question. Um, so I would say that I've had some of that in my life, but I've definitely never intentionally structured something like that in. And I'm always really happy when I'm doing that. Like I've found like gaming, like I used to play Warzone and like fuck around with a bunch of people and love that. Like that is that exact outlet. So that's really healthy. And I think probably that would help my play too.
Yeah, like my ISTP friend, he said something to me that was really interesting. He's like, 1 hour in your house playing video games is worth $1,000 for me per hour. That's what he said to me. He's like, this is worth to me more than anything like that I do in my life. This is like the most important thing. That's what he said to me. I think like when he got a chance to process like this the moment, it's like I think the older you get, the more you like cherish also that like those situations. It's like, oh my God, like we're working all this time. Where's the time for happiness? Because like eventually we're gonna be
Yeah.
dead. And then you
Right.
don't look back at the work that you did. You work back as like, oh, did I have a good life? Did I have good relationships? And
Yeah.
and it's like the TI is trying to hack the FE. And
Yeah.
why don't you go straight to the FE instead of hacking the TI or doing the TI first?
Yeah. That's
Uh,
really good.
and also, I have a friend who's a number one, and he's an INTJ, but he's like he's play last also. And I think he realizes that play is important. He's aware. So he's always holding social events. He's really awkward though, because he's play last, but he still does it. Because I think he's aware that you just need to do it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so he's really awkward. So he'll throw like barbecues and stuff, and he'll pay for stuff because he doesn't care about the money, right? He'll just pay for like the barbecue and stuff, and then people come in
Yeah.
and stuff, and I'm like, this guy figured this out. Like he's aware, you know. And
Yeah.
I even asked him about this. I'm like, so how do you feel when you interact with people? He's like, I feel awkward, And then, but he's aware that like the people somehow injects joy in your life, so it's like needed.
Yeah.
So
Well, two thoughts come to mind, Kendrick, about that I think are very relevant. I think the friends that the intentionality I've had around friendships at this point in life, that especially the last couple of years, has been like, I want double deciders in my life to teach me how to double decide. That's been like an intense focus of mine. And that's the one coin I almost always get right when I'm typing people. I can see that coin because I've just practiced it a lot. I felt it. And the double deciders are really calming and helpful. Like, and just my feminine FE internalizes their calmness about people. And then it empowers me to just chill the fuck out. And so, like, that's been super important. The other thing that I think is really relevant, and this factors in the social type, is I've always been like a hopeless romantic, like obsessed with finding the perfect relationship. And I think the social type has really explained that tendency in me. I jumped into a marriage really fast. Like I was girl crazy before that, but like it wasn't girl crazy like going to like fuck around. It was girl crazy like I need to find the perfect relationship. And the social type has helped me see that I think what I was doing for a long time, and it kicked my ass, was trying to fill the friend void from my social type that I'm leaving in the world with my playlist and my DI fears. And so, this idea of finding a partner that's like I can play with, that I can have a romantic relationship with, that I can experience the world with in a way like solves the problem, you know? And that has been one of the most helpful things about my social type is like for years, and I worked through it in therapy. I have worked through it in therapy. I was using relationships to try and heal things that like problems that I was causing. And that's been the biggest insight is like, okay, now that I have awareness that I'm savior friends on the social spectrum, but I'm creating this huge void. Um, I have to find the balance between making sure the play cup is filled so that I am conscious enough to attract the right relationships. And it's interesting because I feel like there has been a growing awareness over time. Um, but that's been my biggest problem. And obviously, like in the process of like getting in a bunch of relationships after my marriage, I pissed a lot of people off and pissed the tribe off, right? And so like that's my biggest lesson is like it's helped me to know that I'm savior friends because it's helped me go a little bit easier on myself because I have the worst type for being social savior friends.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance, man. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
interesting you said that. I totally resonated with what you said also because I'm a number two. I was when I was younger, I was also a hopeless romantic. Like I could have like probably hooked up with more girls if I cared more, but I was looking
yeah,
for that relationship also. So I totally get that thing that you just said about the hopeless romantic thing. I'm like, oh, is that a number two thing? That's interesting.
yeah,
Um
yeah. It's
um
kicked my ass big time.
And then because it's funny, I was talking to like a bunch of like number threes before too, and they're telling me they're like, oh, they just like fuck around a lot. And I'm like, huh? Like what's going on here? Like, is there like a social like I'm curious now about like social type and people's like hookup behavior or relationship behavior now. I'm like, huh,
Yeah,
this is a correlation now, with like the demon friends, versus like the
yeah.
savior friends.
I can't do the hookup thing. Like I tried that. Like when I left my religion, like I tried to do that to like do the play and like not pressure myself into a relationship. And I just couldn't do it. I didn't like it. I didn't make me feel good. So I don't know.
Oh, I think that maybe that could be the broad responsibility because like I think if you're a number three, for example, and you have like narrowed responsibility, so you're only responsible for your own happiness, you're right. So it kind of makes sense in that aspect, unless obviously that person that you're with is part of that narrowed in like family.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense from that perspective that you just mentioned. Um, all right, dude. So I think we can wrap up the our chat here. We always have long talks for some reason. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
It was really fun.
yeah. All right, dude. So we'll wrap up the interview here. So I'll stop the recording and I can chat with you after this. Okay. So
All right.
thanks everyone for watching. Thanks again, Russ, for reaching out to do our follow-up interview.
Thanks, Kendrick.
All right. Bye, everyone.